All right, let's pivot. We're going to this or that, guys. I got excited making these. I'm excited to see what direction you go in with them. You have no clue what the questions are, so we're getting off the cuff reactions. All right, we're going to start. I basically tried to find some teams that I thought lined up very similarly, make you pick one or the other. And we're starting with the close game darling of your choice. That would make it Wisconsin or Providence. Which one do you trust more in March? Both teams have repeatedly won games decided by 5 or less. Maybe it's because they have some skill in those late game situations. Sean, I'm going to go to you first. Which one do you trust more between Wisconsin and Providence in March?
I'll be muting my Twitter mentions after this answer because I know Providence fans are going to be like, "Oh, but we beat Wisconsin." Well, you beat Wisconsin without Johnny Davis. That's what you did. I mean, Providence is awesome. Don't get me wrong. I've been wrong on them a lot this year, but when it comes down to it, Al Durham and Jared Bynum become like superheroes in the final couple minutes of games, and they just go off. Nate Watson's good, but I think he needs to be involved more. Like, I feel like they need to find ways to get him the ball. I feel like he had one shot in the 3 overtime game the other day. Like, he needs to have the ball more for this Providence team to be really good. But the best player on the floor in that game is Johnny Davis, and I think that would play a very big role in this kind of matchup. When it's late, get Johnny Davis the ball, and I think good things happen for Wisconsin.
Greg, where do you land on that one?
So I want to say Wisconsin because of the simple fact that Johnny Davis is better than Al Durham. I know that as a Big Ten guy. I still can't believe Al Durham is like a go-to guy in the clutch and a good one for this Providence team. But I'm going to say Providence because they have a horseshoe stuck somewhere so inappropriate with this roster and this team. Like they have a magic touch that if I'm trying to honestly envision Wisconsin playing Providence, God forbid, in the NCAA tournament, like I just see Johnny Davis hitting dagger after dagger and then random dudes on Providence hitting the most absurd shots to answer every single time because that's what this team has done every single game. It makes no sense. I tweeted out this week that they remind me of meeting a beautiful French woman. And like, I don't speak French, so I don't understand it at all, but I am in love with it. That's how I feel about Providence basketball. So
how'd you put those two things together? That is.
It's what comes to mind, man. Everyone even still to this point wants to say like, we can't trust him in March.
And I do. I mean,
I trust him in March. I'm going to look stupid for it, but I do trust him in March.
I'm taking Chattanooga over them in the NCAA tournament. Let that matchup happen. I'm taking the Mocs.
That's going to be the fun one. Is I think that will be such a popular upset pick that Greg's going to be zagging while everybody else zigs by taking Providence or Providence. We got to pronounce it French now because you've initiated that comparison. Yeah. All right. Next one in this or that. The SEC team you trust to go farther in March. Alabama or Arkansas. We've seen the high upside from Alabama. We've seen the low. And Arkansas has almost had 2 seasons. The non-con when they were figuring out the rotation. And now they've won, I think it's 11 of their last 12. What do you think, Sean? Which A school in the SEC, Arkansas or Alabama?
Man, this is a tough one, Jim. I mean, I'm going to go Alabama just because of the upside. They're a really good offense, but they're shooting 30% from deep on 47% of their shots from outside. And Arkansas is not a three-point shooting team. They don't have a ton from out there. JD Note is everything on that offense. They're really good defensively, while Alabama is not good defensively. But when it comes down to it, if Javon Quinterly, who hasn't hit a ton of threes this year, Jaden Shackelford gets hot on the right night, I think Alabama could go further than Arkansas.
All right, what do you got, Greg?
I'm going to go Alabama too, but it's mostly just because I don't really like Arkansas, to be honest with you.
Valid point.
I don't know. I think what they're doing in the SEC play is impressive. Like I would say I'm passively riding the must bus right now. Like I'm looking to get off at the next exit, but like for now I'm okay. I don't know. I have this weird shaking feeling with Alabama that is definitely going to bite me when I fill out my bracket and I put them to the Sweet 16 or further. That like I kind of see last year's UCLA team in Alabama, and I don't necessarily mean stylistically, but like, I mean, this is just an offense with a backcourt that could 100% get hot for 3 weeks and shoot them to a Final Four. And I don't think they have a defense that can hold up against anyone. But also, I don't really think UCLA last year did. Like, they were 46 defensively on KenPom at season's end. Alabama is not super far off in the metrics from that. So I don't know. I can squint and see Shackelford and Quinterly just going inferno mode for 3 weeks. So I'll take Bama because I don't see that upside with Arkansas.
And Arkansas only has Note that can do something like that. They don't have anybody else on the offensive end that can do that.
Yeah, I realized I kind of dodged the first one. My answer would have been Wisconsin for that one.
Okay, there we go.
I was higher on Alabama preseason, much higher actually than Arkansas. And maybe it's part of like I'm shifting like hard against my takes here, but I've been a little more impressed with Arkansas. I just the Alabama team, I don't think Sean, you mentioned the shooting numbers, the fact that they're not making a lot of attempts. I think it's just because they don't have many good shooters. Like Quinerly is the one that has completely regressed, but other than that, the front court doesn't have a lot of floor space. So I lean towards Arkansas there slightly.
Where do we stand on Nate Oates, by the way? Like,
good coach. Really good coach.
I still love him.
Do you?
Yeah, I don't think this roster fits. And obviously part of that's his responsibility. You know, you should be out there recruiting more shooting in the portal, but I like the style. I like the fact that he does embrace kind of the shot selection stuff, but he pulled the get kicked out of a game and rally my team. So you got to love that move. I'm still in on Nate Oates, but this team just doesn't fit the style, unfortunately.
I need him.
I agree. JD Davison's a weird fit on this team.
Yeah, I need Oates to have a more redeeming quality than wearing colorful suits, and then I can trust him again.
All right, next one. This is elite defense versus elite offense. Which one do you trust in March? Number one defense, Texas Tech, or number one offense, Purdue? Which one is going farther in the big dance? Sean, what do you got?
I'm going to say Purdue just because that matchup, I feel like really isn't in Texas Tech's favor because you look at who they play as big men, Daniel Baccio, they play Bryson Williams or Kevin O'Banner at the 5 a little bit, Marcus Santos Silva. None of those guys can stop Zach Edey. I feel very confident in saying that. You'll probably have to double them and see what happens there. But Jaden Ivey, I think he could have a really good game. And my issue with Texas Tech is that, well, Kevin McCullough, let's see what he looks like when he gets back from his injury, but he's done good, but he's still not a true point guard. And I think when it comes to big games in March, you need that guy at the point guard spot. And I don't think Texas Tech has it. So I'm going to go with Purdue. Not that Purdue necessarily does either, but I think Purdue has just more total talent.
Yeah, you got to choose one. That's where we're doing it here.
I'm going
Greg,
Purdue.
Big Ten guy? You riding with the Boilers as well?
I feel like I have to. Begrudgingly, I'll take Purdue. I'm clueless on Purdue. I'm clueless on all of the Big Ten, which I shouldn't be at all. But like,
you're going to love the next question.
Great. Oh boy.
Gun to my head, I don't think anybody from the Big Ten makes the Final Four. But I feel very confident in the fact that Purdue should. I think Purdue should be the best team in the country, to be honest. And I still think there's a really good chance that when we get to the NCAA tournament, Jaden Ivey is just going to be so clearly the best backcourt player in the field that we all feel stupid for doubting this team. I also am not convinced that their defense isn't just going to snap fingers and figure itself out. Like everybody on this team was part of a top 30 defense last year. And nothing schematically has changed, but they're in the 120s now. So I'll take Purdue, but it's all under the premise that Matt Painter figures out that like Eric Hunter shouldn't bring the ball up in clutch moments and just don't overthink things. Like just be the team you are, be unselfish, and they'll go further. Yeah,
the gear they've unlocked when they let Jaden Ivey have the keys offensively and go pick and roll, I think that has kind of raised the ceiling. It was already very high with this team. All right, there's two more I really want to get to.
Wait, who you taking? Don't dodge it, Jim.
Purdue. I'm going with the offense there. I love Tech. I think they're going to be an impossible out just because of how tough they are, but the offensive ceiling is just a little too low for me there. Mm-hmm. All right, yeah, I mentioned this one was going to be tough. Greg, I didn't know you were going to be on, so Unscripted is getting a test here.
Oh boy,
this is the writing the ship, this or that. Both these teams have lost 5 of 6. Xavier or Michigan State, which one writes the ship and makes the second weekend in the NCAA tournament? I'm going to you first, Greg, because I know you've got loaded up takes on Michigan State. So let's see if you got an opinion here.
Yeah, I'm taking Xavier, and I'm sorry, Spartan fans. I'm sorry, listeners of Unscripted, but also like the more Michigan State loses, the better our episodes have done with listeners. So not necessarily a horrible thing.
People love misery. They love it.
Yeah, misery loves company. We're all here together. I get it. I just don't think this Michigan State roster is talented. And I talked about it in depth this week, but like they don't have a future pro unless you're just locking in Max Christie to be a future pro someday. But Max Christie right now shoots 29% from 3 and 32% from the floor and plays 32 minutes a game and goes to press conferences and complains he should play less. So not necessarily my kind of guy right now. But like they don't even have a third team all conference guy. Like in the non-conference, it was Marcus Bingham. Then it was Gabe Brown. Right now, it's nobody. And I don't think they snap their fingers and figure that out, even though Tyson Walker kind of showed hope of that for 5 minutes against Illinois. but it doesn't seem very fixable. I think this Michigan State team will make the tournament. They really need to win one game just to get there, but they're a true bubble team right now with how they've been playing for a month plus. Xavier, to me, they're obviously not playing well, but like some of their losses are a little more justifiable than Michigan State's, like at Seton Hall, at UConn, at Providence. I don't really blame them for losing those games. A couple of those were really competitive games. And ultimately, like, give me Paul Scruggs over any guard on the Michigan State roster right now, and I'll take that.
All right, Sean, how about yourself?
Can I just say that I think both these teams are going to lose in the round of 64? Is that an acceptable answer?
No, we force answers here. We have a gun to your head. You've got to answer.
Xavier's lost 4 of 5. Michigan State is losing a lot of games right now too. I trust Xavier's roster more at the end of the day because I think you can go to Jack Nungy and go to Zach Freemantle on the right night, even though it's been a really up and down super senior year for Paul Scruggs. I think on the right night you can go to him. But when you look at Michigan State, you'll have games where Julius Marble drops 15, then he will maybe not play 15 minutes next game. You have games where Malik Hall drops 20, and then he'll drop 2 the next game. And the biggest thing for me where I'm like, this Michigan State team just might not be very good is when Tyson Walker scores 26 points and you lose. Like when Tyson Walker scoring 26 points, you need to win that game, and they didn't. Gabe Brown looked like the guy during the non-conference slate offensively. He hasn't been that in the conference slate at all. So I think they don't have a guy, and that's going to be a big problem for him in the NCAA tournament. I will take Xavier, even though it's hard to bet against Tom Izzo.
Yeah, I'm going to go Michigan State ever so slightly. I'll push back a little. I don't have a great reason why, but I thought they were impressive still in that Atlantis tournament, and that was kind of like the upside that we could see from them. Maybe they rediscover it, but they haven't found it in the Big Ten play. That's for sure. So that one's tough.